to talk to you about, I'm so excited to talk to you about journey mapping. It's one of those tools that I have in my toolkit that I use quite frequently, and to varying degrees. There's different types of journey maps. There's different ways that you can execute a journey map, and there's different reasons that you can use them or different outcomes you can achieve. So this is going to be kind of a quick overview of journey mapping. But if you ever want to dive deeper, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can help you identify how you could build out a workshop or how to tackle a specific outcome leveraging journey mapping. So today I'm going to show you at a high level 3 different types of journey maps, and then we're actually going to, in the back half of the session, dive into Mural and work on one type of the journey maps I'm showing you. Talk about 5 different ways you can leverage journey maps, and then we'll get into Mural. And Mural is a great collaboration tool that if you don't have a collaboration tool in your toolkit, this is one that you could consider. There's also Mural. There's a few others out there. I prefer Mural just because I've been using it for a number of years, long before the pandemic, which changed our ways of working. I was an early adopter of Mural, and I'm really excited to introduce you to the tool and how you can use it to do a collaborative journey mapping exercise. And then after that, we'll just come back, regroup, debrief, and can ask questions at any point. So to start, I'm going to tell you a little story. This is the story of a 30-something woman on the hunt for the perfect swimsuit. Now, any women here will probably know that the idea of looking for a swimsuit can be a little bit daunting. And we all have different ways in which we want to kind of complete that task. So for me, the story is about me. For me, I like to order online. So I kind of had in the back of my head that I was in the market for a swimsuit. And an email came in from my preferred swimsuit shop, La Vie en Rose, also a Montreal company. And I got this email and the deals were amazing. So I immediately went onto their website and started looking at swimsuits. It was a sale, so it was a little bit picked over, a little bit disappointed, but still I found some great items, put them in my cart, and I figured, hey, I'm doing an order, why not add a few other items? And all told, I think I checked out with 17 items in my cart. It was a big purchase. But like I said, the deals were really good and I was really excited. In fact, it was so good of a deal. I was like messaging my friends, forwarding them the email like, hey, this is like blowout prices. You guys need to check this out. Super excited. I was confident I had found the perfect swimsuit. A week goes by and I'm thinking to myself, I haven't gotten that shipping confirmation email yet. Let me just check my emails. Maybe I missed it. No such luck. No confirmation. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Sometimes they're slow. It's a big sale. I'll give it another week. 2 weeks goes by. I'm starting to kind of wonder, and an email comes into my inbox. My entire order has been canceled. Some excuse about warehousing problems, their apologies. Oh, and here's a 50% off coupon for one item and expires in 2 weeks. Oh, and you can only use it in store. Well, as a customer, I'm frustrated for a number of different reasons. 50% off one item. I don't know if you remember, I told you I had 17 in my inbox or in my cart. I had a lot of items. So 50% off one item, not ideal. Plus my preferred channel was online. I didn't want to have to go into the store. So now they're making me use another channel to complete my intended task. So pretty upset. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go look elsewhere. Most customers' journey don't start and stop with only one provider. If they're in the sales cycle, they'll look at multiple vendors or go to different stores if it's retail, whatever it is. Generally, not only one provider is considered. So I go to another store. Of course, I had to go into the store. Didn't have a great experience, didn't find anything I like. I'm like, oh, fine. I guess I will go into their store. This is, of course, the 2 weeks has passed. And I get into the store, not a great experience. The service isn't great. They really aren't all that helpful. I'm trying on swimsuits. I want different sizes. Nobody was coming to help me. So I have to get dressed to go out, get the other sizes. Long story short, I find something and I ask about the coupon. Well, they're nice enough to accommodate and to give me the deal that had been offered, even though it was past the expiry date. Being a customer experience professional, I obviously reached out to the company to share the feedback. Reached out through their chat, and I even reached out to the VP on LinkedIn. Didn't get a good response. They didn't want my feedback. So all in all, I was able to complete my intended task, but the way I think about that company has certainly changed, and I'll be dubious to continue to do business with them on an ongoing basis. So that is an example of a story map. And why I wanted to start with a story map is because I find that these are the most powerful ways to convey a particular theme to a group of stakeholders. We can all create a personal connection with stories. And there's a really great way that you can actually document these in a visual. So of course, I told you my story, but you may want a visual or something documented that you can share with your stakeholders. So this is just an example. I did it in Canva, and I can just scroll over to Canva and show you what it looks like inside there. And I used colors to indicate kind of the positive aspects of my experience, and red to indicate kind of the negative aspects of my experience. Something very visual, very powerful, especially with executives. So that is the first and probably one of the types of journey mapping that I like the most when I'm trying to engage executives, because they don't really want to look at a process map necessarily. They will really connect with stories about their customers. So that is the first type of journey map that I wanted to show you or tell you about. The next is a basic one, and it's really, really basic. It's just like kind of level 0, level 1. And what that means is it's the high level steps that you need to take as a customer. And this is kind of generic. This wouldn't be based on personas or anything like that. This would just be the very kind of standard steps that your customers have to take to complete a task. There's a really important point though, when you're thinking about journey mapping and the difference between journey maps and say process mapping. And that is that a journey map is always from the perspective of the customer. So often process maps are done from the perspective of the company. It's an internal looking kind of focus. Journey maps are looking at it from the customer's perspective. So what is the customer seeing? What is the customer doing? What is the customer being exposed to, as opposed to the steps that you might have internally. So the basic level 0, level 1 looks like this. And this is actually what we're going to do in Mural. This is a great way to bring stakeholders together to work collaboratively to do journey mapping, because it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and you can create a positive emotional connection with the concept very easily. So it can kind of look any number of different ways. The kind of top left version is the one that we're going to work on today, where you break it down to kind of the top 4 to 6 steps, high level steps that somebody's going to take. And then as you go down the vertical, it's how are they going to complete it. So today's exercise is going to be a grocery shopping journey. And what's unique about doing the grocery shopping journey is we're going to put ourselves back into our 2020 shoes, and we're going to reimagine how we felt March 2020 and how suddenly everything changed in terms of how we did one of the very most basic things, which is get groceries. So we'll do that together in the Mural as part of a breakout session. But basically, as I said, level 0 is that high level step that you need to take to complete the journey. And then level 1 is the actions or the how the customer is going to actually execute that portion of the journey. And then along the way, what makes it even more powerful is you start to add in the emotions or how the customer feels overall at that step. So you'll see in the example here that Olga had identified for her organization. She had mapped out this journey at her organization, and tracking and support left customers confused and uncertain. That's how they were feeling. So that was an area for them that they wanted to target and improve. So putting the emotions in there is a great way to say, okay, this is low-hanging fruit, or this is something that's impactful, and we need to target it immediately because it's having a negative impact on our customers. And in the context of customer success, this would be something that you could use if you needed to do some work on your onboarding journey, or maybe your renewal process, something like that. You can just look at a portion of an entire journey. So you could look at renewal, like I said, or onboarding, or whatever it might be, accessing support. And you could do it in this really basic way with your CS team. Could do session like this in maybe an hour, and you would identify probably 2 to 5 different things that you could improve. And you'll see in the picture there, if you were in person, you could do this using sticky notes, and everybody could build out their own, or today we'll do it in Mural as a group. And then just the bottom example is more of a linear kind of example of a journey. And so you could do it like that if that tends to resonate more with your audience. So in this case, we didn't kind of tackle it at the level 0, level 1. We kind of merged the two, and we just went through the different steps and we noted them, and we used colors. And I think in this case, like, we chose green as opportunities, and yellow is just kind of basic. And I think orange was needs improvement. So you could use colors to represent how things are already working in your current journey. You can use journey mapping for both your as is and your to be, but I wouldn't jump ahead to the to be until you've already done the as is, because you want to know where you're starting from, so that even if you're completely overhauling the journey and it's going to be completely different, you know what your customers are used to, what they've come to expect, and that will influence your communications and change management strategy. So I would always do at least the as is. And then if you're looking at redesigning the journey, you could do a new journey map for your to be. Okay. And then there's the detail oriented. This is the third one. And this would be usually what you would do when you are redesigning. So you could do it for your as is, and then you would do it for your to be. And this template exists in Mural, but you could do it without Mural. And this is where you also add in your personas. So I love doing personas, but I always do them from like a little bit of a different perspective. So many personas are done with like that marketing lens, which is, you know, kind of the basic information, the demographics, things like that. But I prefer to do my personas from the perspective of how somebody wants to complete the task. And you'll generally have between 3 to 5 different ways that a customer will want to complete the intended task. And why I like to do it based on the how they like to complete the task for the personas as opposed to demographics is because that actually leads itself or lends itself to a stronger experience design. And you can start to think about concepts of stacking. So there's this great example from this book that I read. I have it on my shelf here, called What Customers Crave. Nicholas Webb, and he's actually not a customer experience or a customer success professional. He's an innovation professional. But he spent a lot of time observing customer behavior. And he did this with one customer in particular, and it was a car wash. And it was really interesting. You wouldn't think initially that there's too many different ways that customers want to complete their car wash. Well, he actually found that there were 4 different ways that customers wanted to complete their car wash, or kind of drivers behind why they wanted their car wash. There was sparkly. They always just liked having things clean, so they wanted to come in weekly. There was cost sensitive, so they wanted the best deals. And then there was two other types that I can't remember at the moment, but if you are interested, I can certainly get those to you. But what was super interesting about these findings was that he then was able to design an experience. It was one experience, but he leveraged the concept of stacking. So they built an app that allowed customers to pre-book their car wash. And how it accommodated Sparkly versus cost sensitive was that Sparkly could have a recurring appointment, and they would always have an appointment at 4 p.m. on Friday so that their car was clean for the weekend. And they just were booked in, they could get in, get out very quickly. That also accommodated, now that I remember, speedy. They were very time sensitive. So booking them and having an appointment confirmed meant that they didn't have to wait in line. They knew they were guaranteed to be able to get in at whatever time that they were showing up, get in, get out very quickly. But then for cost sensitive, it meant that the car wash was able to assess when they had peaks and valleys in the times that people were attending. And so then they adjusted the pricing in their valley periods. And that accommodated the cost sensitive person, that they knew they could get a discount if they booked in and came at 9 a.m., which was a less busy time. So this concept of stacking, they were able to achieve it because they did these personas, which were based on how somebody wants to complete it and had nothing to do with demographics. So something to consider when you're doing your personas. Back to the journey mapping, this really detailed, looks at a number of different, areas. It looks at the stages, the actions, the thoughts, the feelings, but then it takes it and it actually identifies specifically the pain points and the opportunities. But this is doing it in more of a text-based way as opposed to a visual. So you're putting in text, you're putting in more information so that this document can live on its own and could be shared without, say, needing to present it to others or have a key. These generally take a lot more time, and they're meant to be a lot more specific and granular than, say, the basic level 0 or level 1 journey maps. Any questions so far? I know it's a super quick overview of 3 different types of journey maps. No? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question, Janelle.
Yes.
I understand in the first 2 types of journey map, they look pretty nice and clean. But the much more detailed one, under what kind of circumstances would we use this tool for, given the level of detail? I mean, it's good. What would you say?
I would say if you know, okay, let's just take an onboarding journey, for example. If you know your onboarding journey is working fairly well, you're getting solid results from it, but you know that there's maybe some areas of opportunity you're not really sure which ones to prioritize, I would use the basic level 0, level 1. And it's a great way to just kind of bring together a junior team who hasn't done this before as an introduction to journey mapping. And then, you get alignment together, you pick your 1, 2, 3 kind of areas that you're going to focus on. But let's say, your onboarding journey is not working at all. It's not getting you the results you need. You're losing customers. During the onboarding journey, they aren't converting. Well, then you probably need to do a complete overhaul on that journey. This is where I would spend the time diving deeper and getting to know your personas at the how level, as opposed to the demographic level. And then you would design, well, actually I would map out the existing journey first. And you maybe would spend the bulk of your time there. And then that would lead the way to designing the rest of the journey. And you would see, actually, it's only stage 2 that's really the problem child. So you could build out your 2B journey, but just your stage 2 of 2B. Or maybe you're like, okay, the whole thing needs to be redesigned. We need to reorder it. So then you would spend the time building that out there. It's more for an overhaul as opposed to just like a tweak sort of thing. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
And Janelle, I just had a quick question.
Yes, Jason.
I like thinking about this way. It gives me a neat way to think about it. As I'm thinking about it, is it a general thing where in general you would want to start with the journey mapping first and your process? It's almost like do your journey mapping first, then do your process, and not the other way around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always advocate starting with the outcome in mind and the customer in mind, and then you figure out how you're going to deliver it.
Yeah. I just find we're always in a rush to get to the process diagram, and it's so smartly you have to start here. You shouldn't be starting there.
Yeah, you have to start with the customers in mind and put yourself in their shoes And, you know, we'll actually talk a little bit about how you can maybe include customers in this process. So 5 use cases for journey mapping. Definitely to build empathy, and the story map is the best way to do that, to both build empathy and to gain executive alignment. If you have 5 minutes in front of your executive team, are you going to show them a map, like a really detailed journey map, or are you going to get up and tell them the story of Betsy who's trying to achieve whatever goal or use your product or service? So I would probably advocate for using something like a story map, and then you could have it documented in the hard copy, either in the story map version or in a basic or a more detailed version that you could then have as a leave behind. And then that would also support you in answering questions. But if you're really trying to build empathy or gain executive alignment, really think about that story and telling it from the perspective of one particular customer. It's very, very powerful. The next use case would be around co-creating with customers. Now, the best practice for customer experience is to be co-creating with your customers whenever possible. So for journey maps, I've done this with some of my customers before, where I bring them in a focus group and we design we document the current journey together. And then we talk about the biggest areas of opportunity or their biggest pain points. And we talk about potential solutions. That may not be what you actually implement, but it's a great way to get your customers engaged. And it is best practice to co-create wherever possible with your customers. And the nice thing about this type of technology is if you are a dispersed organization, if you're global or national, you don't have to bring everybody into the same room. It can be very practical from a time perspective to use Mural or another collaboration tool to do this with your customers. You could even create an ongoing focus group with them, like a panel, and include them, do something quarterly, and you could revisit a journey map or do other things with them on a quarterly basis. We've already talked about designing customer journeys. So leveraging journey mapping to redesign or reimagine your customer journey. If you're going to do any changes to your customer journey, strongly advise you to do a journey map of some sort. But this 5th use case is one that's really interesting and often overlooked. So our marketing teams are great at doing competitive analysis, but I have found that there's a real gap in these competitive analysis, and they're not looking at the customer experience. So this journey mapping exercise allows you to actually do a competitive analysis. You could journey map your competitors' customer experience, and that would give you a lens into where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are, and then could inform the changes that you make to your journey, what you're providing.